evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I want to start off by thanking all of you for taking time off your busy schedules to join us tonight. And I also, present in the room, see some of you who have been intensely engaged in this process, expressing concerns, offering suggestions, and also some of you telling the town manager, stop what you're doing. I've heard that. However, I want to thank again all of you for making this meeting. I also want to thank the Senior Center Facilities Department for making this meeting room work for all of us. Thank HCAM, the town's IT department, for recording this event and making sure that we can share it widely with the other residents who can't come in. And also, by the way, we, through our IT department, will be taking in questions, comments, suggestions remotely. In terms of tonight's agenda, we will I will start off by sharing a few remarks. We will then ask the consultants who prepared the feasibility report to make a brief presentation and take questions from all of you and people at home. I also anticipate, given the interest in this topic, that there may be questions above and beyond what the report has offered. That's why we have Megan, Joe, Bill, and myself here to answer those questions. And I believe we budgeted 2 hours for this meeting. If we need to go beyond the 2 hours, we may ask Connor to count the votes, but no, we won't vote. Yeah. Also want to thank the members of the select board who are here tonight to listen in. I can share with you that from my discussions with the board members, this is an issue that they care about and are very interested in hearing from all of you. Introductions. Tom Kennedy, Stephen Foley, these are the consultants who put together the report, and they are associates at the Edwards J. Collins Center for Public Management. Why are we here tonight? Specifically to offer Hopkinton residents and all of you the opportunity to hear directly from the team that put together the ability report. And most importantly, for all of you and the residents at home to share any questions, suggestions, comments that you may have on the proposed rec. A few comments. As town manager, working for this community, I strongly believe in public participation. I came here to North America to work for Oxfam America because I wanted to give people in the global south the opportunity to have a voice on policies that impact them. And by extension, that's why I'm in public service. I also believe that providing 911 services and communication services is an important aspect of our menu of services here in Hopkinton. And it's by design and by definition incumbent upon us to make sure that whatever direction we take going forward incorporates your ideas, suggestions, and addresses your concerns. We're here tonight to listen in the name of public participation. You may wonder, why are we even discussing this issue? As town manager, I've been here for 13 years, and over, we have been asked and tasked with incorporating regionalization as a tool and a strategy for delivering public services. I can share with you that this particular topic has been front and center for some of us multiple times, on and off, dating back to 2010. Just after I joined the town, Hopkinton was looking into regionalizing its dispatch services with the towns of Ashland and Southborough. There was another iteration of this investigation that included 20 towns, and we were working with the Middlesex Sheriff's Office. And back then, the interest was on lock-up services. We are now concluding a feasibility study that started off with 7 other towns. We're now down to Hopkinton, Southborough, Westborough, and Grafton. As you may know, there are other services in town that have gone through a similar process. Previously, we looked at consolidating our fire department with Ashland. We also, in the past, looked at consolidating our health services with Medway, Holliston, and Ashland. Alongside those towns, we now have consolidated our veteran services. So this is not a case of singling out communications. It's a topic that has been in discussion for a while. It also needs to be said, and I think all of us in this room share this, that our communications department, our dedicated staff, provide an excellent 911 and communication services to this community. Investigating a wreck is not intended in any way to impugn the quality, the dedication, and commitment of our communication staff. We're simply doing so as a matter of how we do business. We're looking into opportunities to enhance our service delivery. We're looking for opportunities to provide efficiencies. I know that in most cases, when we mention the word efficiencies, there's a tendency to limit that to, hey, we're now saving money. This is not what this is about for me. I've said this over and over. Here in Hopkinton, we have been fortunate over the years that if we put forth a good quality idea, the community always supports us financially. So whenever we propose a service, a town hall, working alongside our volunteer teams, we are not driven by, let's find the shortest ways or the cheapest way of providing a service. What we are tasked with instead is, here is an assignment. Go and find ways to do this efficiently. And we've done that over the years. Also, I am the first one to concede that this has been a very difficult conversation, especially for our communication staff. As managers, one of the responsibilities that we care about is to make sure that the people who work alongside us feel safe and secure. As you have heard, there have been questions regarding what will happen to our staff. Will they lose jobs? Those are very valid questions. If I was in their shoes, I would be asking the same question. Please know that as your town manager, as we proceed with these discussions, if ever we decide to move forward, protecting our employees, whilst I can't guarantee that, would be a primary concern of mine. Feasibility study. In our line of work, we hear a great deal about feasibility reports. And I can tell you, I'll be the first one to admit that I have failed over the years to explain what this means to the community. Put simply, a feasibility study is the foundation, the first step towards defining a specific plan of action. In the feasibility study, you look into and assess the practicality and viability of taking certain actions. Therefore, in my line of work, a feasibility study is not the final plan. It is against that background that I share with you that we may not be able to answer all of the questions, because the feasibility report has simply said there's an idea to move forward a combined rec center. Is it practicable? Is it viable to move this forward? Will there have been ideas put forth or projections made regarding staffing, regarding budgets? I'm the first one to say those are simple, mere projections. They do not represent the final answer. They simply indicate what is it that we should be concerned about and pay more attention to as we move to the next steps, if we decide to, if the community decides to do that. Thus, where exactly are we in the process? We just finalized a feasibility study. We are here tonight to hear from you, your thoughts on that feasibility study. The next step would be, if the town decides to move forward, to consider formalizing a relationship with the other towns, Southborough, Westborough, and Grafton. In Massachusetts, defining a relationship between towns with the objective of providing a service is done through an intermunicipal agreement. I can tell you and share with you that if the town moves forward, the ideas, the concerns, the suggestions that have come up through this dialogue will be our negotiating position. They may not be the final provisions of the IMA, but I can assure you that the boards, the volunteer teams, the technical staff that I work alongside, and our legal team over the years have done a darn good job making sure that we represent the interests of Hopkinton effectively. If an IMA is agreed upon, we will then go into the next phase of doing the real work. As we always do, we don't want the taxpayers of Hopkinton to shoulder that bill of doing that real work. That's the opportunity for us to apply for a state grant. What we will be applying for will be defined in the IMO. If a state grant is approved, we can then move into the more definitive components of the REC project. This is similar to what we do with all projects here in Hopkinton. We start with a feasibility study. We then move on to do the more definitive plans. We then do the construction drawings, and then we implement the project. We want to follow the same process. However, as we said, this dialogue taking place right now in Hopkinton is important for laying a good foundation for first a decision to be made, and then next, if we decide to move forward, our negotiations for the things, the items, the provisions that should be incorporated in the IMA. So I know I've taken a lot of your time, but I thought it was important that I highlight these things. I want to thank you all again for making this meeting. I'll turn to the consultants to walk you through their presentation. And by the way, we will also be posting this PowerPoint on the website that has the other information on the project. Tom.
First of all, thank you very much, and thank you for being here. I was the lead on this project for the Collins Center, and I worked very closely with Stephen Foley. Both of us have backgrounds in the public safety community.
Speak up.
Speak up, I will. So there's the process that we used was we had a kickoff meeting. We were able to meet all of the members of the public safety team for the chiefs, primarily in the case of Hopkinton. It was also with Megan, the communication director, and we set up a process to go out and visit each of the sites. We did site visits. We gathered information from interviews at that location. We also did a facility assessment as far as the ability of that community for that public safety answering point to actually to be enlarged. And then we also gathered technology assessment. And the key of any regional center is to have a great interoperability both for information technology and radio systems between all of the communities. And actually the state has a plan, an interoperability plan that has to, that you really have to follow on that. So, and then we did a staffing and a financial analysis that was in the report for those of you who have seen the report. At the end of the day, when we had regular meetings with the study team, we were able to present issues to them as we were moving along, so that it was a piece at a time, and that so we gathered their input, through the entire process. We did a draft plan. We presented the draft plan, and then we finalized that with the 4 communities. What we found that it is feasible that to consolidate, to regionalize the Grafton, Hopkinton, Southborough, and Westborough into a regional emergency communication center, which at the between the 4 communities there is there's some 70,000 people living in those communities. There's some 17,491 911 calls, and there are a total of 763 total calls for service. It was feasible because the leaders, the public safety leaders in each of the municipalities, recognized the operational and financial benefits to do so. And I will say that I have never met a police chief or a fire chief say this is the right reason to regionalize was for financial reasons. They always said that it was for the purpose of enhancing their dispatch operations. And I have never, I've done some 28 studies and in many, many communities, and that has never been the case. The chiefs represent, police and fire chiefs always represented their community extremely well. And their focus was always on their public safety mission for that community. All of the participants in the study recognized the need for professional call taking and dispatching services. One of the sites, and I have it down as Westboro. We did learn a little bit more information. There's also a site that we'll be taking a look at in Hopkinton, for the site for the regional center. The interviews provided that that there were some significant benefits to to regionalize their dispatch services, and these their words. These are the ones that were most cited. Was the ability to manage multiple calls for service, surge capacity. In other words, during those times that you're going to have a significant number of major events or multiple events. We've all seen ice storms and see what it does to a community with multiple crashes. It can be a major crime. Or a multiple apartment building that would be on fire. So there's a need to have the ability to manage that. The second was standardized call taking and dispatching procedures. They recognize the benefits of doing that. And there are a number of standards that apply to that, both from the state as well as from certain associations that do that the emergency communications field are in. A third is there's greater interoperability for municipalities that provide mutual aid. We've been in many communities that there was a very difficult time having interoperability within the three agencies or the multiple agencies within the town. This does provide the ability to not only have it within the town, but also within the communities that are participants in the regional dispatch center. The new equipment would be standardized and maintained. The cost savings to municipalities, as well as more professional staffing, equipment, and training. I've done over 240 interviews in Massachusetts for both police chiefs, fire chiefs, communications personnel, dispatchers, and town managers, and that I have been able to identify there were 5 significant benefits from all of those. One is the standardize and the use of the same dispatch protocols. I mentioned that the chiefs here also identified that. Resources, more dispatch personnel for major events, and increased surge of 911 calls, cost savings and financial support, primarily from the state contributions to the center development and the recurring costs, enhanced mutual aid, and a more efficient service to the public within dispatching and emergency response calls. There is a chart up here, and you may not see it all that well, is that the state 911 department provides a support and incentive element in their grant program that has this is an annual amount of money that would be provided for support. For the incentive is for the regional element, and the total grant.
I can't read any of these slides.
It's useless.
And we,
Possible to take the people off the side and enhance and make it all bigger.
there's I will tell you that I will tell you the amounts, and you'll be able to get copies of that from the you know, it's going to be posted online. But there's a,
One more time, I can't read any of these slides, and like the gentleman just said, could you maybe take the people off the right and blow it up a little bit?
I'm not
Still
sure.
gonna be too small, it's too wordy.
I'm not sure if it's, they can right now. I will tell you what the amount is, and then you'll be able to download that off of the website,
Gonna be on the town website.
the town website.
Yeah. We're posting the PowerPoint on the town website. We are making a gallant effort to print some of the pages of the PowerPoint and share them with this group right now.
When, did this get sent out ahead of time? Could anybody have seen it ahead of time?
I'd say no.
The report, because I
I
read.
can't hear the question either. What's
the
what's the
going on?
I just asked if it had been available ahead of time. I apologize if you couldn't hear me.
And what's
The PowerPoint, no.
We didn't see it either.
there a microphone available for you to speak? That would be helpful, because it's very hard to hear you.
You know, I can get up in here.
Yeah.
And it might be
Awesome.
easier.
They won't be able to hear at home, though. Hold on,
I will do my best.
hold on
All of you.
hold on one second. I'm sorry, sir, because we're gonna have to need to mic you up so people at home can hear if you're in the middle of the room,
Sure.
right? Are they gonna be able to?
Sound remote is great.
It can, okay, perfect,
Voice it here, you'll get the folks here, sound remote is great.
awesome, thank you. Okay.
The amount of money is that, for the support money is 366,186 annually. For the incentive portion of the money is 837,233, for a total of $1,203,419. The portion of that is, that's an annual amount of money that the regional center would get for their recurring costs, for their budget.
per town, that's through the center,
That's for the
and the
center.
town share that.
The, there's a budget that's developed. It's in the report. And then.
Hold on.
It's to run.
Hold
the
on.
center.
We're gonna have to ask questions after he's done presenting, please.
And then there's so this is an amount of money that goes to the center, so the towns aren't paying for the full cost of the operation of this. State 911 department provides, they provide development grants, that pay for the development of the center. And that covers the needs for radio interoperability, a redesigned dispatch center, for the CAD, for computer-aided dispatch and records management system, their IT system, that's the backbone of the dispatch center, for, as well as fire alarm systems, personnel, and a transition award. Now, I'll explain a little bit about the transition award. This year, the state, through their development grant program, is going to increase the total amount of money up to some $40 million. A transition award is that was put into place 4 years ago, and it's as an incentive to the communities to establish regional centers or to join regional centers. The cost share of the various towns, as an example of, for the cost share, after you subtract the support and incentive money for Hopkinton, would be $233,011. For the first 3 years, because of the transition award, the town would not be paying anything for 3 years. So the recurring costs, your annual budget, there is an amount that would be applied, but they do not pay that. The regional center gets reimbursed for that for the first 3 years. In the fourth year, the state pays 50% of that, and and obviously the town pays the other half. And then in the fifth year, the town pays 75%, and the state pays 25%. This is over and above the amount of money that the support and incentive money provides. In the report, we also recommended that, the leverage the commitment of resources that the town of Westboro is providing for a particular site. Like I said, that is not a determined site as of yet. There is another site that will be doing some analysis, and at the end of the day, the four communities will decide on which site is most appropriate. The second recommendation is to develop and approve the intermunicipal agreement that the town manager talked about, which is really critical. That lays down the groundwork for how that regional dispatch district operates. It's a third is to develop an outreach program for all of the communities to inform their public safety personnel, as well as the citizens of the change for the enhanced capability of the regional center. Why we recommend that is because it's really critical to not only to let all of the employees of the town know what's happening, but it's to let the people in the town know exactly what's happening. Particular, here, for all of the locations in the town, as well as, they're not going to be picking it up. It's a familiar voice that you may hear up here. It's going to be at a regional dispatch center. My experience on that is that the regional dispatch center, you become part of their center, and they learn all of the nuances of your town at that center and the personnel there. A fourth recommendation was to develop a plan to assess the administrative and security needs of each of the municipalities. We asked all of the towns for what they do, what the dispatcher does beyond call taking and dispatching. And that, and they did come up with a list of items, everything from, greeting the person that walks in the police station to actually monitoring, prisoners in the cell block. The issue is, it does take some planning, and I've seen it done, quite effectively in many, many communities throughout the Commonwealth. But it does call, a significant amount of planning. It has input, from, the public safety team here. And an additional recommendation is to develop a transition training plan to incorporate all of the elements of the required dispatch training as required by state 911, as well as all of the technology, the dispatch protocols. I would not, I always recommend that they develop new dispatch protocols that are standardized. There's a great deal of work that has been done in these areas, to standardize those. Picture yourselves in a major sitting dispatcher, which is a very, very important community. And that if you're listening to four different ways of being able to dispatch four different communities, it really doesn't work all that well. Actually doesn't work at all. So you really need, you put yourself, you do things in a crisis, the things that you've been trained to do. You always hear about police and fire and others to say, why did you do it? Because that's the way I was trained to do it. And that's so training is going to be a critical part of this whole training process. And as to utilize the insight of the dispatchers and your current public safety personnel to develop excellence in operational guidelines and practices for the citizens of both the communities as well as their public safety services. Those are the recommendations that we have, and and all of that is covered in detail in the report. The presentation will be covered on the that will be posted.
Okay, Tom, thank you so much. I should apologize. We attempted to make copies to print the point, but we ran out of. At this point, Josh, give me a sense. How many people lined up at home?
Nobody with a hand raised.
Okay, we'll start from this room. Any questions? Yes, your hand came up first. Thank you.
Actually, do I need to state my name and address?
Yes. Yeah.
Feel free and come forward.
Mary Arnott, 51 Teresa Road here in Hopkinton. Quick question. Who makes the final decision? Does this go up for vote? Or is it made within the select board and your office, Norman?
Yes, again, let me give you the phases. Whether we do a feasibility study or not, that decision has already been made. It's made at staff level. If the town decides to move forward and draft an IMA, intermunicipal agreement, that is decided by the select board. If, as part of the IMA, we decide to go with the district requires town meeting approval and final approval in Boston by the legislature.
So the town people don't get to vote on this at a ballot or anything?
This wouldn't be a town meeting item.
As I said, if the decision, think of this issue in the following way. There's the study that has been decided. It's decided at staff level. The next decision is to formalize a relationship with the other towns. That is municipal agreement. That is decided by the select, does not town meeting approval. The next phase is if the decision in B to create a district, town meeting approval is required. And following town,
So for the, to switch from like how we call today to a regional dispatch center is a town meeting vote. That phase.
if at that point we're creating a district, the answer is town meeting approval is required.
So, can we,
A center and a district.
yeah, can we, first of all, can we make sure we ask questions one at a time and we know asking? I'm sorry. Can we just have names when we're asking questions?
So I just wanted to know, if I go to town meeting at some point, will there be a ballot question that says, do you approve a regional dispatch center with these other towns? Yes or no?
No.
Here's the question. With regard to the, yes, here's the answer. Yes, here's the answer. No. IMA, if the select board decides to sign an IMA, town meeting approval is not required.
It's not required.
Yes.
Norman, I think you need to explain what an IMA is.
Okay, I'll go. I thought I did already. I will do that again. An IMA is a document that formalizes the agreement by the towns to provide a specific service. In this case, it will be providing the service of dispatch and communications.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm open-minded. I haven't made my mind up one way or the other.
Mhm.
But I would just like the option that to be able to vote as citizens if we want a regional center, but it sounds like we don't get that option.
No. I don't want you to leave this meeting in that sense. But here's why. Let me explain why. Here's why. I think if this is to move forward, my recommendation to the select board is that we form a district.
What is a district?
A district which provides this service by the 4 different towns, requires us to go to town meeting.
All 4 towns would go to town.
So can I take a shot at this, Mary? If the first step, it's a multi-step. The first step would be the towns would have to formally agree to work together to move to a next step. At the next step, there's 2 choices, a district or what's the other name of the other one?
A hosted center.
A hosted center. The district is kind of like Keefe Tech, a regional approach, okay? So if we go to a district, that then has to go to a town meeting vote. After the select board the towns work together, they decide for a district, that does have to go to a town meeting vote. Now, the hosted center does not have to go. The hosted center,
Hosted center, I believe, does not require town meeting approval. However, based on town culture, the select board may ask that town meeting weigh in. We have taken issues to town meeting for a consensus vote, may not be binding.
okay, so it's not required, but it might happen. There's two options for a regional call center approach. Does that help?
No.
I don't know. It doesn't seem like it was gonna be that of a difficult question, but I apologize, but, okay. I saw a lot of things on the benefits presentation page. And a lot of those things could be accomplished without consolidating. We could standardize on procedures with.
So actually, can I just ask everybody, we're not going to get where we need to go tonight if we do that.
Yeah, and I don't want to take a lot of time because I'm sure others have questions too. But I just wanted to point out, there were several of those items, and I don't know if you want to go back to the page, but we could do, you know, with other towns without consolidating. We could agree on standard procedures across the town.
We do have standard procedures in the town.
Okay, so maybe we've already achieved that. The other thing I wanted to ask is that I don't think this would, I know it's only one of many considerations, but financial obviously has to be a consideration or we wouldn't even be looking at it. Am I correct? Has to
No.
be cost benefit to the town. So, putting that aside, with regards to personnel, I mean, we have, believe me, we have the most fabulous fire department, police department, responders, first responders, communications. I don't know how we could improve on it, but I'm not the expert. So I'm wondering about personnel. If we do consolidate, who ends up managing the resources, the people? And, how, and does that fall under like one regional manager who has responsibility for all that personnel? The reason I ask that is because that benefit somehow to the fire and police department to not have to manage the personnel in the call centers currently. Maybe it gives them a little more time to focus on their main mission. Although, again, it's working so well, it's almost like, are we shaking this up for no reason?
Yeah, we don't need the rules.
So,
No.
so who would manage
Yeah.
now at the center,
The district,
hiring those people be determined?
the district director will manage the personnel, similar to Kiftec. The principal at Kiftec manages personnel at Kiftec.
And who manages that person?
Who manages the director? It will be a board that has not yet been decided, but for the most part, with the existing regs, that board is made up of town managers. There's also an operational committee that brings in the fire chief, the police chief from each town to focus on the day-to-day operations of the center.
Well, there are nuances in each town, like you said, of how the town is laid out, the people and everything. It's hard, although I'm trying to be open-minded, it's hard for me to see how a regional center could do a better job for Hopkinton than Hopkinton's own right now.
Right.
Hey, Mary, thank you.
Marlene.
Okay, Marlene? Yeah.
Hi. Marlene Troops, been in town, 44 years. Hopkinton has grown tremendously. When I came here, 5,000, 6,000, now we're close to going on to 20,000, I think, so 19, I think we are. I think we're all here because we want to be safe. And I'm a pragmatic person. Is it broke? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right. You know, why is this issue why? I mean, and also I'm thinking, I mean, I was an outreach worker. My office was here for 25 years. I worked helping seniors essentially live independently. As an outreach worker, we worked so closely with the dispatchers. We could call them up and try and talk to them and say, well, you know, this isn't, you know, they knew the people in town. They knew the people at senior housing. They knew some of the situations, and that was so important. I just don't understand why this is, why? It's gotta be money.
Yep.
And money isn't going to make you safe. It's a community. And part of it is we're growing so big. Shouldn't we look to ourselves to take care of ourselves? Because you're going to be calling, I mean, I'm thinking now, Grafton, isn't that in Worcester County? This is Middlesex County. Is that issue going to come up? I want to trust my own, which I think we have a very good care for our people here now. I don't get this. Why?
Good question.
Thank you.
I will ask each of the directors to respond to that question, and I may make the final remarks. Chief Miller, why?
Why? To keep it simple, regional communication centers are very popular in the fire service. They've been around for decades. They're becoming very popular in Massachusetts. They're very popular up and down the East Coast, West Coast, Midwest. They're here for the fire service. They work very well. I cannot speak for the PD. I do not have background in that. But for the fire service, they are the wave of the future. They've been out there for decades. They've been tried and true, and they work very well. It allows us to have additional resources in one location for multiple incidents at a time. And I think Tom touched on that earlier. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. As Chief Bennett is coming up, I will share with you, back in 2010, when we looked at this effort, there were only perhaps 3 in Massachusetts. By count now,
25% of all municipalities in Massachusetts, of the 351 cities and towns, are part of regional communication center. 25%.
okay, sure.
Police and fire.
Yeah.
Some just fire, some just police, but most of it together.
So I'd like to begin by first saying that I'm very proud of all of you, all you officers, and the work that you do and the day-to-day level of service that you give. Undoubtedly, we give the most caring service of any police department that I've ever seen. I've been a part of many of these studies, many feasibility studies. It is part of government to look at options. It's just a fact of life. And should the town decide to go with the rec, I worry about you. I'm worried about you guys right now. I want you to know that.
Thank you. From someone who knows.
Years ago, we were in the middle of a feasibility study and we decided to go to combined dispatch. There was a firefighter dispatch at the fire station and it was a police dispatcher for us. We combined them. It was probably the single most improvement to public safety that I saw in my career. To have those 2 communicators together to support each other, offer surge capacity, which is always spoken of. Fire dispatch is not working, 3 police calls, they help each other out. All I can do is commit to you that I will work tirelessly, whatever decision, to continue to work with Director Durad and continue to drive their team forward as well as mine. And if they decide to go to the rec, I will work tirelessly to make the best level of care that I can. That's all I can say as your chief.
Yes, and as Director Durad is coming up, let me share with you what a fantastic job she has done over the years. And also, just to share with you, I meet with her regularly. This has been a very difficult conversation for her. She has been very professional, has made us know very clearly where she stands, and we have offered the support that we can to the best of our abilities. Megan.
I essentially echo most of what Chief Bennett has said. I am so proud of this team. I can't even tell you. They come together as a well-oiled machine on everything they do, whether they're full-time, part-time, whether they work together normally or they don't. They give our residents a lot more attention than probably some other residents in some other towns get. And it's great that they do that. They truly care about each and every one of our residents. And they work great together. So my hope is that the town comes together and presents their cases. The board makes a decision based on what they're hearing. And the town gets the best decision for the town. And you know, we'll carry on with whatever that decision is.
Thank you, Megan.
A
Next
question
question.
from home?
Please go ahead. Your name first. Name and address.
From home?
Yes.
From home? Are you speaking with me?
Yes, please. You are showing up as a phone number ending in 17. Please state your name and
Yes.
address.
Thank you. I'm Linda DeBona. I live at 16 Davis Road in the senior housing. This may be a little far-fetched, but there's a point to it. With respect to these 4 towns, say some almost national type of disaster happened. Say there was a bombing in all these 4 towns, but the hardest hit was Hopkinton, and Grafton would like to take care of their own people. Isn't there a conflict of interest in a situation like that?
Sure. Thank you for your question.
So that's a very good question. So certainly those type
Thank
of
you.
incidents, yes, certainly those types of incidents should be identified previously in any community's comprehensive emergency management plan, which is required by the federal government and is updated annually. And so they would identify what resources needed to be sent, whether they be in a wreck from a wreck or not. Having grown up in the neighboring town here to Hopkinton, is that I follow all the news in Metro West every day. And so I constantly see resources being moved from Westboro to Southboro to Ashland to Marlboro, et cetera. So, you know, having those multiple resources available and already identified ahead of time for response capabilities is part of having a comprehensive emergency management plan.
Yes.
I hope that answers your question.
To a certain extent, I understand very well what you explained, but my point is if something happened among those very 4 locations, and Grafton perhaps not being hardest hit, but would, you know, have the desire to take care of their own residents, wouldn't it be a conflict of interest, or they'd be torn to have to assist in Hopkinton if that was the worst hit of all the 4 communities at the very same time?
So I'm going to get a little more specific as it relates to your question, is that the Commonwealth set up after the 6 firefighters in Worcester were killed, the mobilization of task forces across the Commonwealth. So resources were stretched within these 4 towns, is that the police chief and the fire chief and the town manager working with the board can automatically request that they move resources from another part of the state. And that's what's actually happened this past fall, moving resources from the Cape all the way up to northern Worcester County. So the capability managing that through MEMA is available.
Thank you very much for that answer. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
Thank you. I'm still listening.
Have somebody else with a hand raised video.
Okay, Mike, before we come to you, 1 second, we'll take one more person from home, and their name, Josh, is?
Diane M.
Yeah, Diane, go ahead.
Yes, excuse me. This is Diane McCauley, 52 West Elm Street.
Diane, do you mind speaking up, please?
Yes, I will try. I'm on an iPad. Whoops. Can you still hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Yes, I am wondering, or as I understood someone to say earlier when there was a discussion about the protocols and standardization, I believe it was stated that Hopkinton already has a standardization. And I'm not sure if that was intended to be in the town or across the towns that we are considering. So if that could be clarified, that would be terrific, because I'm wondering why, if the standardization is already there, it is listed as a benefit, because it wouldn't seem to be adding anything in terms of moving to a regional approach. My second question is, I have seen this presented only as the RECC, not as moving to a district where there would be a town vote. And since that has been introduced tonight, I'm wondering why it is not being presented as a move to a district versus the RECC.
I'll answer the second question first, Diane.
Mhm.
We are not discussing a district because that will be defined in an intermunicipal agreement. The intermunicipal agreement has not been put together.
Okay,
Yes,
I
it
hear
is.
what you're saying. I don't know what that means. Is that a further step down the path that you go to an RECC first and then a district?
Yes, you may have missed the discussion earlier. If the select board
Mhm.
are inclined to support moving forward, they will then have to enter into an intermunicipal agreement.
Yes, I heard
That
that.
is, yes, that's a document that is signed between the 4 towns specifying what services are going to be provided,
Mhm,
how they will be provided,
mhm.
and how that district is going to be governed. And if in the intermunicipal agreement, the towns decide to go forward as a district,
Mhm.
not as a hosted center, that will get approval
I
in
see.
special legislation.
Okay, so the select board at that point agreeing to go forward uh, essentially means there is no decision per se until the town votes on it.
If the decision is to move forward with a district, yes, you are correct.
Okay, thank you.
The first part in terms of standardization, my understanding is that the reference was to the standardization within Hopkinton, not across the towns, but I'll let the chiefs comment on that.
I think you're right, Norman, on that one, yeah.
Yep, I think the person who asked the question was talking about the cross-town standardization, I believe, but comment on that. Okay, thank you.
If I could.
Yeah.
You may have heard that we're an accredited police department. We follow minimum 256 policies, of which they're part of. It's how we respond to individual calls is outlined. How we process everything is outlined under accreditation. So I don't want to do a disservice to the hard work that the officers and the communicators do. They work under very strict guidelines. They're also governed by their own individual entities. And here, for communicators, they're governed by APCO regulations when it comes to when they deliver life-saving emergency advice over the phone. That their guidelines. Director Durad, I know this because I ran dispatch for decades. She does QA and QI against those best practices and standards. So I just want everybody to know that we're although we're very caring, there are a lot of rules and guidelines they have.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay, Mike.
Mike Shepherd, 11 Hill Street. And Karen told me before I left the house, don't say anything that would embarrass the family. I want to express the fact that me and my family, and I suspect most of the people in here, have incredible respect for both the chiefs and the communications people in town. I want to also express my disappointment with the leadership in town. You guys excluded, at least I've heard. Town manager and the board of selectmen. Now, this thing first came out back in August, as I understand it. And then a couple of weeks ago, before the board of selectmen, there was another presentation. And then somebody said, oh, shoot, we haven't asked the people what they thought about it yet. And here we are, a couple of weeks before it's supposed to be submitted, this agreement, and we got our meeting together. I don't know what that says, but I've been to probably, I tried to figure it out, close to 50 town meetings, and I'm just an old son of a bitch. And I can never remember a town meeting when either the fire chief or the police chief asked for something and we didn't give it to them. Didn't matter what it cost. It's kind of like education. We know how important it is, okay? And if you guys said you wanted brand new radios tomorrow and we went to town meeting in May, you'd get them. I and the rest of us would suck it up and pay the money. Now, I understand 25% of the communities in Massachusetts are involved in this thing. It's really important to me when 75% of the Massachusetts is involved in this thing. Again, old stuff. My respect for the state is like negligible. Anything the state does is pretty much screwed up. And by the way, anything the state does when they offer you money, whose money do you suppose that to be?
Right.
Yeah. Some.
Actually,
I paid my taxes, you paid your taxes, and the state says, hey, if you get into this thing, we'll give you the money. No, wrong. And I'll close now with the last thing, and hopefully Karen won't be too embarrassed. But about the police station, and the fire station. Even when I was a kid and got in trouble, that was the place you went, well, they brought you to. But I always told my kids as they were growing up, all 5 of them, if you get in any trouble, this is the place you go to. This is the safe place. And this is where you go. And the story I'll tell is my daughter, Sarah, who's now 40 something, was 5 years old, was participating up behind the high school in some soccer thing. I was supposed to pick her up and bring her home. Karen was supposed to bring her up and bring her home. We both thought the other one was bringing her home. And we always told the kids, whatever you do, go down to the fire station or the police station. Sarah, at 5 years old, walked down Grove Street, walked into the police station and said, my damn parents left me here. These guys knew who her parents were.
Right.
So we came up and we picked her up. And that's how important these guys are.
Yes.
And I do dumb crap every day. You know, I fall off walls, I fall off ladders, and, you know, I've been lucky my whole life. But when my grandkid calls up and says, Grampy fell off the roof, Grampy's not around, and talks to these guys, the chances are they know Mike Shepherd lives on Hill Street and the freaking ambulance is gonna get up there. It's not gonna happen with a regional thing. It's gonna happen with these guys right here, which I gotta say are the best part of our community and the part of the community we depend on.
Yes.
Leadership part, and kind of discipline.
yeah.
Mike, well spoken. Yes, well said. But I just want to be fair. I know you have mentioned the select board. I think you should point at me. Here's why.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, you should point at me. Here's why. Up until November, December, we were unaware here in Hopkinton that we needed to move very quickly into an IMA and apply for a grant. We were still in the process of formulating our final steps on the feasibility study. So you're absolutely correct that up until November and December, things picked up. You know why they picked up? We need to apply for a grant.
Again, that's
Yes, no, in arguing with you, I am simply sharing with you that I want to take the responsibility. I don't want you to point at the select board. I want to take that responsibility. That's why I'm here.
That's what you get for having the big job.
Why were they in the dark?
Yeah, Tom.
Peter Thomas,
Yeah.
Top News and 215 Pond Street. This is a question for the consultants. This is a kind of a 3-question. First question is, should this go through the IMA and everything else? What role does the Collins Center play in the rollout of this? Is there a consulting engagement for the Collins Center?
No, actually, no, there isn't. You know, we always recommend that they do hire a project manager. We don't do that. They've done it for a couple of smaller projects, but this is really getting somebody that's knowledgeable about everything from construction to radios to IT. So there's a really kind of a unique person or company
So
that would actually do
That
that.
makes sense about the build out of the rec, but I guess the recommendations in your report are the outreach program, the security analysis process, the transition training plan, those are more sort of pure play consulting things. Do you play a role in that, or do you recommend that the town outsource that to somebody qualified? And if so, have those costs been contemplated?
Oh,
For those, for recommendations 3, 4, and 5, outreach program development for the community and, right? Who does that work?
I will always give them my past experiences. Sometimes they will ask me to do a write-up, and then what they do is they take that, after reviewing it, and they end up looking at the best sources of information to get the information to the right people in town. So whether it's a local newspaper or whatever people in whatever town you're talking about, they all have different ways of being able to get the
Okay,
information.
so in other words, your job ends at this point. Essentially, you've done the feasibility study and your guys are out at this point.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Okay, you've been waiting patiently. Yeah. Yeah.
Donna, I live in Wrinkle Village, if you know. Davis Road. I have 2 questions. My first question is, how many people in town are gonna lose their jobs?
Could be 9.
At this point, we don't know. As I said, we have not refined the projections that have been put forth in the report. I believe the report says 18 versus currently we have how many?
It's 15 dispatchers and 3 working supervisors.
Yes. Yeah, and currently we have how many?
Oh,
Yeah, 25?
24, I think.
Yeah, I think right around 25, 24. Those are projections. However, if this moves forward, we will define in the IMA the steps that will need to be taken to ensure that the center is adequately staffed.
So I'm sorry, can I just add, those are 2 different questions. How the center is staffed is a different question. Whether people in town who currently do this job will retain their jobs, the answer is if we change, they are not guaranteed to keep their jobs.
They're not,
They are not guaranteed to keep their jobs. They have to reapply to the new center. I just want to make sure that we're answering the question really directly. Okay?
Okay, my second question is, I'm very familiar with 911 with my mom. If I call 911, I'm just saying, if this goes to Westboro, whatever, wherever it's going, what happens?
Can I answer?
Go ahead, Chief.
Sure.
How question?
Actually, it's not a difficult question. Because this has been vetted out. As I said, there's 25 communities right now. I'm sorry, 25 of the communities in Massachusetts. So all these questions you have with the concerns of if I call 911, is the ambulance going to get to my house? Yes. What's going to basically happen, I'm going to really do quick paraphrase. 911 comes in, call taker takes the call.
Where is the call going
The
to?
call will go to the Regional Communication Center, the RECC.
Okay, probably Westboro, whatever.
We're not sure yet.
Okay.
Okay.
So what do they do when that call goes in there?
911 screen comes up, it populates your call, and I'm just going to use an example we witnessed the other night. 911, what's your emergency? What is your community? I live in the town of Franklin. My mother's having chest pains. Okay, well, the call taker is taking the call. The data is transferred right to the dispatcher who is in charge of that community, and that call is being processed and sent out immediately. So that's how it goes. They're going to triangulate off of their 911 systems.
Okay. Chuck, I saw your hand up. Oh.
You know, when I appreciate the time that everybody's taking to come here today. I just want to start off, I commend Chief Bennett and Dispatcher Durant for your support of your employees as a 30-year employee of Hopkins PD. I think we all know how important the employees are to the department. They're the backbone of the great service that we are providing currently. Without them, we would not have this great service. My comment is going to be, a lot of people have asked about cost savings. At the meeting we were at yesterday, it was brought up when Chief Bennett, Chief Miller, Dispatcher Durant, I believe, Gary, the deputy chief went, and the members of the board of selectmen went to that wreck in Franklin, I believe it was.
Yes, made a comment.
Director told everybody that went from Hopkinton, there is no cost savings to the town of Hopkinton. Matter of fact, it's gonna cost you more money than what you're gonna see in savings. So that hasn't been mentioned here yet tonight. It was mentioned several times yesterday, but nobody has mentioned it today, so I wanna bring that up front. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chuck. Yeah, yes.
Field the 25 East Main Street. I think serious thing I heard from Tom was dispatchers are gonna learn the nuances of your town and the regional dispatches. Well, our dispatchers know the nuances of our town. We have a Claflin Street, a Claflin Ave, a Claflin Place. We have a Maple Street, a Maple Ave. So the dispatcher is gonna be listening to what you say. You might not be saying it in the right way, a little garbled, and it could come out as street when it should be avenue, it could come out as place when it should be something else. Our dispatchers are smart enough to ask, where exactly are you? Or they already know where you live, and we don't have to go through that. So that was one concern. Another one is the highway department part of this whole thing, or is it just police and fire?
So far, the highway department is not part of this. However, it's a question that will be moving forth. In addition to the highway department, animal control. Currently, during the day, each department does their own dispatching. However, after hours, the communications department does that.
So, let's see. You already have a whole bunch of questions. All right, I'll send them on to you.
You've been waiting patiently. Go ahead.
Aside.
Clark, 24 Mayhew Street. And my sideline said 2020, that's when the discussion started. So 2 years now, and nobody knew anything about this until just recently, which was basically the selectmen's meeting of December 6th. My question, the IMA, is there a cost to sign that, to stay with that? If we back out, is there a penalty?
Yeah.
And what if not all 4 towns decide to district?
The last question first. If the 4 towns decide not to district, this discussion is over.
So a note of the vote.
Nothing moves forward.
And it moves forward.
No.
No, sounds
So-
agree, it dies.
No, it would go to a host, hosted.
So if the towns don't agree to work together, this particular initiative would not go forward.
Question is, what if some go forward, but not all?
What if can some go forward without others?
Someone to
Thanks, Annie.
district and others don't.
Yes, that can happen. If, for example, Southborough, Grafton decided they will move forward, yes, they can move forward without Hopkinton and Westboro.
Okay.
The other question, the first question, will it cost the town to do an IMA? Yes. Our time, legal counsel's time, any time that we spend on the IMA is paid for by the taxpayers. That's number one. Number two, you asked, will it cost the town if the town joins and then withdraws? The answer is yes. The town will be responsible for any costs incurred up to the point it withdraws. Also, here's what we're learning. We have not verified this. We have the experts that can answer this question. We have heard also that the equipment that we, as a community, move over to the wreck doesn't come back to the town. we lose it immediately. We are looking into that. We don't know what that means. Perhaps the experts have an answer.
You know, generally the state, 911 department, through their development grants, they purchase equipment for the new center. That stays at the center. It's all, it doesn't require the towns to make any contributions for equipment. So your equipment stays where it is or wherever you think it's appropriate. So, you know, like the radio systems or anything else. So that does stay. So that the state 911 provides the money for the new regional center. But, it doesn't entail any.
Can I just?
Yeah. Oh,
I don't, I just want to make sure I add, just for clarity, what we also are learning, just to be clear, if we decide to go to the rec, the state wants us to do this. This is a cost savings for the state. They will come in and they will take our 911 equipment. We will not get that back. All right, so that's another thing, right? Then so for example, I've heard, I don't know this for myself, that Hopedale pulled out and they now have their 911 through Upton,
Correct.
right? I just want to make sure we understand.
Get that.
you don't get it
Yeah,
back.
I think, and again, I don't know this for myself. I think I've heard that Beverly, a bigger community, did pull out and they sued and were successful maybe in getting their stuff back, but it was costly.
Okay, I'm gonna swing back to this side.
I want to hear from them. They're the dispatchers that pick up our 911 calls.
Okay, I know Mike has had his hand up from the beginning, so I'll
Let's
come
hear from
to
the
you after Mike. Yes,
Thank you very much. Mike Gerosia, 1 Colonial Avenue. The question for the consultants is, when a rec set is formed, they basically set the standard on how they dispatch, correct? Okay, so now each fire and police department will have to adjust to those standards, correct?
Yes.
So that's now more training for our police officers and firefighters have to adapt instead of the system that they already created. That's one. Secondly, you mentioned that it enhances mutual aid. Can you please explain that to me? How the enhanced?
Actually, those are words from actually the interviews that we conducted from police and fire.
It does.
Yes.
So you just don't know how it works, so.
Oh, do I?
Well, how does it enhance? Well, we have mutual aid now. How does it enhance it?
okay, good, great question, Mike. Chief Miller, you wanna answer?
Exactly. So Mike, good question. Basically what it does, and I'm gonna point the finger at you a little bit, because you
Sure.
know, because you work in a you work in a communication center. If you have, I'm gonna use the Westboro and Southboro, we do mutual aid with them. The dispatchers are there. There's no picking up the telephone and calling. They look over, there's a couple different avenues we can do. We can look at the same alerting system, so towns can be alerted at the same time on specific calls. There's no picking up the call. They can look over and say, Mike, does Hopkinton have an ambulance available? Hopkinton have an engine available? Does Westboro? Yes, no. So those points there.
So
Now,
it's just an enhancement once in a while, not all the time. Because every reporter spoke in the building, first alarm, Ashland's the first one there.
we would look at adjusting how we do and how we operate.
Okay, so, right, so it's just in those 4 communities, it enhances mutual aid, just the 4 communities. With each other, not the whole district. There's 23 towns in Fire District 14 that Hopkinton, Southborough, Westboro, and Shrewsbury. So the other towns, it's not gonna help. And as they know about fire mobilization, we go and organize and send stuff all over the state. So the rec's not gonna help with that mutual aid, correct?
No, because you're still gonna be the control
Yes, we're
point,
still
which
the
is
control
District
point,
14.
so-
That's, it was never
Right. Well,
talked about.
he mentioned mobilization. That's why I want to mention that again. Okay. And as far as the cost savings go, yeah, there's grants that you have to get, but that's only in the beginning. Then after that, you gotta suck it up and you're paying for everything, correct? Is that correct? No?
No.
So I'm gonna save every year, the lifetime of this rec center,
Up to the first 5 years.
5 years. All right, so
No,
5 years. So
no,
I've been-
5 years.
I've been here 35
Th-
years,
th-
so I
there was
think I
that-
want to be here 35 more.
What? No, actually, there's
5%?
the support and incentive money you get every year. The transition award is for the first 5 years. That's an additional amount of money.
Okay.
So, but the support and incentive money, you know, that's every year.
That's every single year.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay,
And-
Rob, yes.
Can I say, I'm sorry, can I say something too? Because we've heard different pieces, and with all due Yeah, I'm sorry. With all due respect, we've heard different things on the cost savings. So for me, that's an open question. Because what we heard when we toured the facility, was that it actually, this is, they're professional folks and they're running a professional operation. They're very proud of the work they do and they should be. But they said this is not a cheaper alternative. So I actually think that we actually need, and we have, I don't know, 20, do we hear 25 communities or 25% of the communities are doing it? We need actual comparative financial data so that we find out what communities are experiencing when they make this decision. That's a question on my list, for sure.
Yeah,
So just to add
yeah.
to that, sorry, I think we gathered some information through our tour. I wasn't sure when our turn is gonna come. That's okay. We can share it anytime, I guess. And Mike, respectfully, thank you for bringing it up. It certainly is on the leadership, certainly is on the town administration. And we're sorry that if it appears that way. As you have heard from Norman, that it is more of a timing issue, apparently. And if you follow the last few meetings, as soon as we heard about it, the first thing we mentioned is how can we go public? How can we share the information through websites, through information sessions like this? And how can we gather the best and most authentic information across? So what we did in the meantime, because it was close to the holidays, right after holidays, actually on January 2nd, right after everything opened up, we went and visited the RECC Center at Norfolk, and we gathered quite a few first-hand information and are happy to share that. I was waiting for the next select board meeting because we are also scheduled to visit our own center on the 14th, so we can understand it firsthand how it operates today. And obviously, kudos to our dispatchers, kudos to our police department and fire department for keeping us safe for all these years. And we have our wholehearted trust and belief in their capability to handle anything and everything that's happening and has happened. And we leave our doors and we leave our house in their hands, essentially. So thank you, and we'll continue to thank you. But what we have learned, maybe we can give a snippet of this now and then elaborate as things progress with more finding. So essentially, just to put the highlights, as Muriel mentioned, I think Marije also mentioned earlier, we asked it repeatedly that what is the financial gain? Because initially our thinking was that is a key driver, given some of the budgetary challenges or constraints that we are seeing with the growth of the town. Of course, that's a key area of focus when we look at the budget and other stuff. And I think in the first report, we saw that there was a projection of about 200, 300K savings every year. But that aside, and we were going to ask those questions anyways, but that aside, what we have found is the rec center executive director and the deputy director repeatedly confirmed to our questions that it is not a zero-sum game or less in terms of cost. So what that means is right now we are looking at these 4 communities. If they come together today, they have say 25 dispatchers, and in the new center, the report or the proposal is projecting 15 or 18 dispatchers. So it sounds like it's 10 people saving or 10 people's job lost. But what the rec center directors confirmed is that is not a realistic scenario. And they also emphasized actually when they first established theirs, they also were under the same impression, and the proposal and the plan was also reflected that way. And they said from day one, we suffered. And from day one, we knew that this is not going to work the way we want it to work. So in the last 5 years, they actually bumped up or trying to bump up, and they have, I think, bumped up 1 or 2 per shift as of today. They started with 6 per shift, now they're at 7, but ideally they want to go at least 8, if not more. So their first, I think, response and advice to that was, please plan it properly, not looking at the cost savings, because that is not where the driver is, and be prepared that the cost will be more than what the zero sum today is. So that is financially, I think, is a very good eye opener for us, the select board members at least, to understand that. Now, on the positive side, so we asked, okay, so what are the benefits that you are seeing? Because you're running it and they've been in this profession for 25 years, 26 years, very veteran and dedicated service people. And they said 2 things, and we also want to put it to light. One was that, being these 7 dispatchers or 8 dispatchers together gives them the strength that if, God forbid, something bad happens, big bad thing happen in one town, and the assigned dispatcher is 1 or 2, the others can jump in at that time. So that gives them some, larger capacity to handle a bigger challenge. Now, question can be raised that type of challenge may be more likely for a larger city. Now, God forbid, nobody can predict any of such accidents, but more likely to happen in larger cities than smaller towns. So is that the biggest value or driver for us? Question mark. Again, we are all analyzing, right, and collecting information. The second thing they mentioned, which is also not, I think, very beneficial going to the rec center, is that the camaraderie that they also experience in the local centers between the officers and the dispatchers, or between the fire department and the dispatchers, seeing face to face or working face to face, that is going to be lost because now no one's directly knowledgeable individually and not exposed to each other. So they feel that human touch is lost when it's in a consolidated center. And last, or one of the last that I can remember, is that when you are in a rec center and you have all the dispatchers together, they, as a career dispatcher, felt that they were in a more dedicated, focused dispatcher career path, which they thought was more satisfying for their jobs, because now it's a dispatcher center with 30, I think the one that we visited, and they can go up to director, executive director, and they don't have to do other additional work of station, be it signing up or logging in, other official or documentation work. So they felt that was a relief for them. And that was a positive thing for the dispatchers to motivate them into their career. And they also mentioned that it's hard to find good trained, well-trained dispatchers. So that's one thing that may be, a little bit better for rec. But fortunately, we don't have that problem when we talk to our dispatchers and our group for retaining or attracting the right talents. And another thing that also came up was when you are in a group setting, it's always better to, again, have that understanding within the group that the larger group can share knowledge better and provide little more synergy in terms of handovers of the 911 calls to the dispatchers and others. And again, we haven't visited ours and have the questions to our setup and operations, so we can't really make a judgment call on that because we asked for specific statistics or data, and they said because of kind of the legacy system nuances, they don't have any specific apples to apples comparison. But today they take about 45 to 60 seconds from the 911 call made to the police actually dispatched. That's what we heard. So that's one efficiency baseline that they have, which they think is pretty efficient for large for they serve 6 community consolidated center. So that's in a nutshell what we have gathered and what we have found. Again, we are collecting more information. This is definitely in our mind is not a done deal by any means. We want to do the best for the town, and part of that is collecting the information, understanding how everything works and what's best for town. So we will definitely keep sharing, keep understanding, and keep collecting more information and more to come on this. So just wanted to share that today. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Shadul. Rob, you've waited patiently, please. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Robert Sable, a resident of 23 Apple Tree Hill Road. I'm a current employee at the town of Hopkinton in the 911 communication. I'm also the union president of our group of communicators. Just want to take a moment to comment on the statements on what is the benefits of a rec center. First, I want to echo what Norman stated earlier. I want to thank everyone for coming here tonight. It means so much to us to see this outpouring of support. Usually you don't get to see us. We're hidden behind a tinted glass in the police station. You usually only know us on the phone or on the radio. I definitely want to thank the officers that are here I saw there was a firefighters here also. Definitely want to send out my heartfelt thanks to them for coming to support us. I want to comment on the notion of professionalizing the job of dispatch, which is sort of what was just commented on in terms of removing us from an office setting, taking away window duty, any other paperwork duty. I feel that's more subjective than across the board feelings. I know our group, we love answering the window. We love seeing you guys come into the station. We love helping you. You hand in your LTC application. Oh, you forgot the check. Oh, you have to pay online. Now we're saving you time to having to come back, or if you have a dark station, you have to just submit it through a slide and, oh, sorry, you have to come back because you're missing a piece of paperwork. I got the privilege to go on the tour of Metacomment with this great group behind me. We experienced a dark station going through the door. We went into the lobby, you had to press a button and you had to wait for someone to answer. I've had numerous instances of someone running into the station lobby, actively fleeing an emergency, an abusive partner, a road rage incident. Now, those are few and far between, but they do happen. And having us in the station, we were able to remove them from that emergency and put them into a more secure location. So I feel like that service alone is a great loss if we're moved to a different location. And I know Norman has promised that a dark station would never happen in Hopkinen, and that's awesome. It should never happen in Hopkinen. But as far as I know, there's no plan in place to actually implement that promise. And there's a lot of talk that would have to happen for that goal to be achieved. Another mention is the camaraderie with the PD and the FD. We have a great working relationship with our officers, with our firefighters, our director, the chiefs. We have a wonderful working relationship. And I would hate to lose that edge of it where we can have a conversation with how a call went right away. Or if we didn't agree with something that happened, hey, what happened on the road? You sound a little mad. Why were you giving me attitude over the air? That sort of thing. We're able to address those issues immediately. Or if it's moved into a rec center, then it becomes you have to fax over a form. You have to deal with the director of the rec center. You could have standardized SOPs, but I had some conversations with dispatchers at Metacomment. And the lingo on the radio is still different for each department. So now you can have a standardized dispatch procedure, but you can't force the police officers and the firefighters to follow it. Now you could contact the chiefs of those towns and try to keep it work there, but it's not a guarantee. And now you're asking your dispatchers who are working for multiple communities to also learn the language of those communities. As was brought up earlier tonight, we know the residents, we know frequent flyers, we have conversations with them, we know their problems, we know their issues, their preferences. Don't go lights and sirens to this address, it bothers them. It's that sort of thing you lose when you just standardize it and turn it into a corporate operation. Is something that I sort of see how it is. In this town, we already have a pretty solid mutual aid network with our surrounding communities. And I understand the notion that Chief Miller brought up where if you're in the same room, that's going to cut time down. No question about that. But there's been numerous instances where I called Southborough for their engine. The guys are already signing on because they heard it over the scanner and the dispatcher already knew where they were going before I even asked. We're in District 14 for the fire department, which is a massive mutual aid network. We work well with the National Park Service for the state park, as well as all the trails around town. We provide emergency medical dispatch, which is so we can give CPR instructions, give you instructions on how to bind a wound. Whatever you need done, we got you. We have 8 full-time employees, 6 part-time employees. We have a wonderful director who has done a phenomenal job leading us and making sure that we are up to a nominal standard, which is done by APCO. We do the Con Ed every year, which is required by the state of Massachusetts. We meet those standards and go beyond that. We have 2 dispatchers on shift 24 hours a day. Recently, we had a big storm. And yes, the call volume jumped. But we brought in a 3rd dispatcher because we have a 3rd station. So when we need to, we can have a 3rd dispatcher on shift. We worked through all those calls. We didn't have an issue. Grafton and Southborough only run one dispatcher. They stand to benefit the most from this merger. Instead of them paying for a second dispatcher 24/7, they're saying it's more beneficial for them to just lump into a rec center. Also, to understand how the cost would work in terms of the assessments, it's 50-50 based on your population and your call volume. Right now, we're second to Westbrook. So in terms of cost assessment, we would be second in terms of what we would be paying into the rec center. And again, the cost savings is up in the air because that's all metrics that we need hard numbers for. We just don't have them right now. But the question I pose to everyone, it's more rhetorical. Please keep an open mind. Listen to both sides of the argument. Think, is it worth giving up this community aspect for a potential of cost savings, a potential for a more streamlined mutual aid network? Because once you sign the IMA, your 911 equipment's gone. And quite frankly, once you lose us, we're gone too. Thank you.
I'll go with you.
Go to him first.
Yes, yeah.
I'll go.
Jack Murphy, Old Crest Road. I heard mentioned earlier that the state was gonna save money by doing this. I'd like to know how.
You were in 911. So I can't tell you all of the specifics, but how I understand it is that in Massachusetts, we operate a very expensive model of 911 in that, go Massachusetts, each city and town has been provided with 911 equipment and 911 service. In many states, New Hampshire to the north, they have 3 911 centers, I believe. I'd have to verify that. So not in each city and town. So the state is eager, they supply and support all that equipment. They're eager to minimize the number of places where they are providing and supporting 911 equipment. That's how I understand it.
You were kind enough. Yeah. Go ahead, Peter.
This is a 3-part question for the chief, Chief Miller. So
Can I ask if people who have not yet spoken can speak first? I'm sorry. I think that there are people who have been waiting to ask questions that haven't yet gone.
Don't go ahead.
I just wanted to share a couple recent 911 calls that my family has made.
Name?
Oh, my name's Laura Connolly. I'm at 188 Ash. So I take the train into Boston every day. Was after a bad storm on my way down Front Street, heading to the Ashland train station. And there was a downed wire on Front Street. And it was early in the morning, so it was really going to impact schools and things like that later. I can't miss my train, so I'm not stopping. So I did call on my speakerphone to dispatch, and they said, "Well, where are you on Front Street?" And I was like, "Oh, I have no idea." A quarter mile down. I said, "All I know is it was in front of arenas." So they said, "Okay, we'll take care of it." That was one. Just as a comparison, my husband works for the town of Holliston. He drives seniors in their outreach program to doctor's appointments and whatnot. Went and picked up someone, knocked on the door. The person didn't answer. So the protocol for them was to go in, announce yourself, try to see if they could find him. He found the woman, she was on the floor. So he called 911. In Holliston, they don't have full-time public service. So he called 911. He was routed to a dispatcher that was not in their town, took the information, and then they said, "All right, well, we're going to transfer you to either Medway or Ashland." Transferred them, and then that dispatcher asked, "What's your emergency?" Like, start all over again. Yeah. And if you have an emergency, you're like, it's not like you're ordering a pizza or flowers. Like, you want to tell them what's wrong and get help right away. I guess I'm concerned with the response time. If this is rerouted out to Westboro to someone who doesn't know us and then rerouted back to Hopkinton, what kind of impacts that can take? Personally, I feel like I've called 911 a lot. My parents lived on Davis Road now. So we've had My dad's gotten locked out of his apartment. Sergeant Brennan's come down and had to let us in through calling the dispatcher, things like that. So we know these people. This is our town. And I just feel like this is Hopkinton, you know, like Mike was saying, doesn't scrimp when it comes to safety. And I don't want to. We pay a lot of money to live here. It's a great place to live. And I feel like, you know, maybe these towns need a little boost because they don't have the services we do, but we do. So.
Thank you. Next.
Oh, God. Yeah.
How you doing? My name is Donnie Collins. I live at 45 Teresa Road. I'm been a fire department member here in town for about 38 years. I'm currently a shift commander at Logan Airport. I'm also a paramedic in town here and also up in the North Shore, as well as a reserve police officer. So other than my physical shape, I am pretty well rounded in public safety. To echo what Mike Shepard said here, who created this? Back when they did the whole E911, a lot of politics going on. Everybody wanted to have their own PSAP, and the state created this. There were over, as I understood it, I spoke to quite a few people that are very, of course, it doesn't take much to be smarter than me, but the retired fire chief of Cambridge, he's on national committees for Homeland Security and whatever, and he knows everything about radios and dispatch and everything. And he told me that initially there was over 300 public safety answering points, and there was just too many. But the state just said, "Oh, sure, you want one, you want one, you want one," and it was just totally overwhelming, and it's almost a nightmare. So now they've whittled it down to in the 200s. So they've made progress, but it's still pretty much unmanageable, and that's what a lot of the drive behind the scenes is for these regional, smaller ones to set up. The entire state of New Hampshire has one PSAP for the whole state. You call 911 from Pittsburgh, New Hampshire, from Nashua, Portsmouth, Keene, and it's all answered out of Concord. And then they kick it down to these dispatch centers. Okay, so that's some of the history there. We've got, you know, over 200 of these answering points, and it just does create chaos. And again, state caused it, you know, maybe even unintentionally, but that's how it started. Not to beat a dead horse. Absolutely. Anybody you talk to that has any knowledge of it, there is zero cost savings. Okay. And I know Mary will just try to state that. So that's just a given fact. The penalty of bailing early. I spoke today to the Hopedale police chief. They tried a regional dispatch with Millville and a couple towns over that way. It didn't work for them. They tried to go back to the old fashioned way. Their 911 equipment had been removed. Okay, and they could not get it back for, you know, without, you know, spending huge money. That was just prohibitive. One of my main concerns that I just found out in the last couple of days is the staffing. Okay, and the minimum manning, minimum staffing levels. Okay, so they're going to present you, and please correct me if I'm wrong. You're going to have 6 dispatchers during the day with a supervisor. The evening shift, which tends to be a little busier, is going to have maybe 7 or 8, you know, whatever. Don't quote me on the exact numbers, but along that. And then the midnight, you know, would be a few less. The only thing is the minimum staffing, okay, it goes down to 2. Well, that's what we have now. If it's a day shift, they have 2 dispatchers and a supervisor, you know, when Megan's there. Okay, so now you've got 3 other towns you got to cover, you know, so that just, I'm not the smartest one at math, but I'm not the dumbest one either. That just makes no sense. Okay, so that particular point really drives home with me. You know, people being out sick or whatever, are the staffing levels going to be, hopefully, I would hope a little higher than that. So if a few people bang out, you know, you're not just blacking out the station, but you're not overwhelming your potential 2 people on duty. You know, and you might have a dispatcher come and try to take up some of the slack. You know, you get one major incident, and any of these people will tell you, whether it's a fire, a bad accident with extrication, you know, you got to call mutual aid. And these people are jumping through hoops, and they don't get near the respect, okay, that they deserve. When we gave up our fire department dispatch at the airport and gave it to the civilians in the control tower, the Massport communication specialist, they had they didn't have much fire training or, emergency training at all. But, it was just to see these people and they, not having a clue. We've got experienced people here and there are some new ones and, not everybody walked in the door and was an expert the first day, but they're working through it. They got good colleagues that they're being mentored by, and that goes a long way. And what everybody, the few people who've had to use 911, they know the local places. They know that there's a Claflin Avenue place, and all that Commons, the whole bit. And my main thing that bewilders me is what's the hurry? Okay, let them start this. And if it works for them, we'll join it next year. Okay, there is no hurry. There's no gun to our head. You don't get a free fire truck if you're in the first wave of people, to come along. What is the hurry? The time that it seems to me there's a lot of questions that even tonight in a forum with experts that still aren't being answered. What is the hurry? What's the gun to our head that we have to do this next week or we lose out? What do we lose out of? So I just think that we need to sit back, the forum I heard or I saw something somewhere, it was like 3/4 of the questions that were asked were not even answered. So how do you want to go in this? Well, let's get in there. Well, what did we rush for? I don't know. What was the penalty if we didn't rush? I don't know. But we're here and we committed ourselves. The Beverly Fire Chief is a personal friend of mine, recently retired, grew up on East Main Street. Okay, I graduated high school with his sister. Okay, and I asked him, I said, Paul, what happened with Beverly? They were sold a bill of goods. There was going to be 18 to 20 communities that were going to all, be part of it. And then they started to see how it was going to develop. And it's like, whoa, we don't want that. Whoa, we don't want that. They had signed their IMA. $2 million that they were on the hook for to get out of it. And that was all legal fees, just fighting it out. What is our hurry? Okay, I don't see any rush, no benefit to rushing or anything. And they were supposed to have 18, they went, or 20, they went all the way down to 5, and they just had their first new town join them. Now they're up to 6. But I mean, 6 is still like a third of what they had anticipated and starting off with. So I think, and now you got money that you're going to get from 18 communities. Now it's divided by 6 instead of 18, so that the smaller, they're paying more. So I think we need to take a step back. Okay, look at the whole picture, get some more answers, okay, and then come together. I mean, this here was all fine and well. You couldn't read the slides, we had no, handouts, and no disrespect to anybody. I just think we got to be better informed, okay, and given the information that we really need and that we're looking for and that matters. So I appreciate all the work everybody's done. And, here we go. So thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, say, you've been waiting patiently too.
Ralph Everett, 32 Lakeshore Drive. One of the questions I have is, I understand that our equipment's relatively new. Our 911 equipment is relatively new. Is that right?
It's a mixed bag, old and new.
Okay, and if that's true, if we were not to join the RECC, what's the lifespan of our equipment? And would they obsolete our equipment later on during the course of all this time, making this decision? So I'm just curious about that.
Director Durant.
So all of that equipment is provided by the state 911 department. And we don't pay a dime for anything that they do. They come in, they do preventative maintenance on things when it's time to update and replace the computers because their lifespans are over. They come in and provide all of that, and they do all of that. So I can't remember off the top of my head how old our current equipment is, but it's only a few years at max.
When did you remodel?
We remodeled, 2 years, year and a half ago, and put in new consoles, new furniture.
So I know it's not my turn, but to the point though, the report states that there's 49 mobile radios and 96 portable radios that are end of life in the town. That was in the addendum of the report.
That's separate. Yeah, that's not state funded.
Yeah, that's separate. It's not funded by the state. Yes.
Question is on that, will we have to incur the cost of that? Would a rec alleviate the cost of that?
3 million?
Yes, at
Yeah.
minimum.
Yeah, we again, feasibility study phase, we have projected it might cost the town about $3 million to replace those radios.
3 million to replace those radios.
Gladly pay it.
Who has not spoken? You haven't. Go ahead.
I was pointing at,
Okay.
Tim Brennan.
Look at these guys.
Oh, who wants to go first? Okay, go ahead, Tim.
He's the union president.
Yeah.
Greg DeBoer, 46 Spring Street, but I'm not speaking as a resident of town. I'm speaking as a police officer and president of the Hockton Police Patrolmen's Association. I've been a police officer here. Well, I've been in law enforcement since 1994. I started my career as a dispatcher for both police and fire in the town of Westmores and Charlton, and came to Hockton in 1999. I've been a long-term union president. On November 9th, I wrote a letter to the Board of Selectmen. I know it was read by Rob at the Selectmen's meeting on the 10th, but I'd like to just read it quickly and then highlight a couple of points. Recently came to the attention that the town of Hopkinton has started exploring the feasibility of joining forces with other area police and fire departments and forming a central dispatch facility. I'm writing you today in opposition of the regionalization of the Hopkinton Police and Fire call takers and dispatchers. Marketed under the guise of cost savings, regionalization of call taking and dispatch services may seem like a good idea. However, our organization has serious concerns related to the citizens of Hopkinton, as well as the safety of Hopkinton's police officers, firefighters, and paramedics. Hopkinton has consistently been rated one of the safest communities in the country, and this is largely partly due to the excellent working relationship Hopkinton police officers have with our in-house call takers, dispatchers, and the excellent work that they do. First and foremost, Hopkinton dispatchers are intimately familiar with our town. The dispatchers know the roadways, the citizens, and the other town agencies on a very personal level. Unlike other lines of employment or in other areas of government, police officers, firefighters, and paramedics work in an environment that rapidly evolves, seconds count, and they honestly mean a matter of life and death. We currently have a highly qualified team of dispatchers who are dedicated to Hopkinton alone and are ready to respond solely to the needs of Hopkinton in the time of crisis. The concern that this similar crisis in a neighboring town will preempt the level of service in Hopkinton is something we don't need to worry about. However, with the regionalization of dispatch, it's not just a possibility, this will undoubtedly happen. Imagine a loved one in dire need of emergency services who's experiencing one of the most terrifying moments of their life, being placed on hold and ignored because the assets of the regional dispatch center have to address several other calls from neighboring towns that they are serving. Imagine the level of frustration the police officers experience when they're unable to get timely information related to the calls they've been dispatched to. And imagine the liability the town could face when a person with no knowledge of Hopkinton and several towns away may have an error in job performance that puts the public and its officers at risk. I've personally spoken with members of many of the police agencies whose departments have elected to participate in a regional dispatch facility, and I cannot find a single officer or a single supervisor who felt that the change benefited the level of service that they provided. Every person I've spoken to made it a point to say the jobs were more difficult and the quality of the communications from dispatch has been severely deteriorated. I've been told that community members no longer benefit from the man station and we're essentially building closed to the public at 4 p.m. until 8 a.m. The partnership between Hopkinton police officers and the Hopkinton Communication Center creates a safer environment for its officers and the town as Hopkinton as a whole. Our dispatchers' dedication to Hopkinton, its police officers and firefighters is second to none. Maintaining a dedicated communications department in Hopkinton will continue to allow our team to continually provide you with the best level of service possible. Would there be a cost savings? Possibly, but at what cost? I just wanted to read that back in because there is a lot of misinformation going around, and there's differing points of views. Strictly coming from a limited fire knowledge background, the needs of the fire department are grossly different from the needs of the police department. You know, what they want to accomplish with this is grossly different than what the police department wants to accomplish with this. Right now, Norman had mentioned it's more about efficiency than savings. And I honestly believe that. I mean, I think we probably made it pretty clear that there won't be a cost savings with it. However, I don't think that there will be an efficiency savings. As Donnie Collins said, right now we have 2 dispatchers around the clock. During the day, we have a dispatch supervisor present. When the wheels fall off of something, they come together. If a major event is going to happen and we know about it, such as a weather event, we call in another dispatcher. We're never going to be able to foresee the future and know that some national tragedy, a local tragedy takes place. That's the nature of emergency service, and that's what we have to do. However, there are safeguards built into that. Some of the things that are being brought up that will, that are concerns about making it easier to dispatch are already safeguards built in. If we get an increased number of 911 calls, major accident right at Main and Grove Street, dispatch is immediately flooded with dozens of 911 calls. Our dispatchers do a great job of screening through those calls, but there's also a built-in overflow. Those dispatch calls don't go unanswered. They end up in neighboring towns who then call and say, hey, I just got a call here. Thank you, we're aware of it. We're dispatching somebody to it. Safeguards are already in place. As far as as was put, the interoperability and standardization and enhanced mutual aid. We already have that built into place ever since September 11th. The interim command system has been put into place. There's all different levels of incident command. The study was done by the FBI after September 11th that basically said interoperability was a huge issue during that event. That was addressed. We now have all of our dispatchers, to the best of my knowledge, trained in incident command system. We have unified command systems that are in place that are both police and fire working jointly. We have what is needed in Hopkinton already serving solely the needs of Hopkinton. We don't need to be in a regional dispatch center to increase our levels of service. I've been doing this for a long time, and I honestly don't see the benefit of it. We have a working relationship right now. Definitely from the police side, I was assuming the fire side is the exact same way. If there is an issue right now with the communications department, we have the ability to go to that telecommunicator and address the issue right away. Or if the telecommunicators have an issue with the police officers, they have an ability to confront us face to face. That is out the window when we are 2 towns away with a different command structure. They are not town of Hopkinton employees at that point. They are the regional emergency communications center employees. And it is not our position as police officers, frontline supervisors, fire lieutenants, or whatever it would be, to address those people who are working for another agency. It'd be somebody coming into your personal workplace and saying, you're doing your job wrong. Or we are doing our job wrong, because it works both ways. This guise of increased service and increased mutual aid, right now, I can get on my radio in my car, turn a knob one way, and I can talk to Grafton, I can talk to Westmore, I can talk to any of these towns. We have regional channels that broadcast and are monitored in dispatch region-wide. So if something goes wrong quick and we need help and we need it now, it's not necessarily calling up and saying, hey, do you have somebody available to come here? You switch a switch and now you're talking to a regional network of Baypern that has all area departments. And having experienced this myself, guys respond to those calls to help the other people in the time of emergency. I appreciate your time, and I really urge the town not to enter into the IMA. It's, as Donnie said, there's no rush to do it. There's no great need to do it. It could cost us in the long run. If down the road, 75% of the communities in the Commonwealth don't use it right now. I'd be curious to see that statistic, if that's 25% of fire services using a regional dispatch or 25% of public safety as a whole using community safety. The police officers that I've talked to, and I'm not talking bosses, all due respect to the chiefs, I'm talking to the guys who don't talk to these people on a day-by-day basis. They talk to them on a moment-by-moment basis. And they're talking to them at times on a moment-to-moment basis where lives are on the line, seconds count. And I want to be able to talk to somebody that I know. I want to be able to get and know that if I talk to Rob, that I'm getting the answer I need, not some Joe Schmo in a regional center somewhere else. Again, I appreciate your time, and please don't enter into the IMA. I think it's too soon and does not benefit the quality of service for the town of Hopkinton. Thank you. On the far right, hold it. All right.
Tim,
Team. Was
Um,
in
Yeah, Tim, go ahead.
Pay my tax bill loan.
that.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna set up a couch for Mike because he's definitely out of the house. I'm Brendan, 151 Spring Street. I've been a resident for 23 years. I've been with the police department for 20 plus years. I was also on the growth study committee, so I had an opportunity to see how the different committees run. Shadu, Muriel, and Amy were all on that same committee, so I got to learn how they work. And I was the union president for 3 years, but I'm not speaking as the union president. I have 3 children, so when you have kids and you grow up in a town like Hopkins, they grow up in a town like Hopkins. I grew up in a city closer to Boston, but if you grow up in a town like Hopkins, you have 3 kids, you get involved. You get to know the other parents. You're sitting in the sideline, and because you put a uniform on every day, someone always wants to chew your ear and say, hey, what about this? How about that? And you get really dialed into how the town of Hopkins works in that place. So I appreciate all the efforts that everyone has done. The consultants, thank you for coming out here. You probably had 1,000 things you would have rather done today. Our elected officials are here. They're not getting paid. They're here because they're trying to make our lives better as residents and as employees, and I appreciate that. I spent some time here yesterday. I was out of the country for a couple of weeks, and this really took off in the 2 weeks I was gone. One thing that I think we in public safety, we use a lot of acronyms, and I don't know if people really understand. I started dispatching in 1987 at the start of my career. And if you really want to truly appreciate as a patrolman or a firefighter, a dispatcher, you should put yourself in their shoes for a day or two, or a week or two, or I did it for 8 or 9 months. It's a very hard job. The reason we have civilian dispatchers is because the job gets so technical and so specific that they realize, okay, a cop that we spend 24 weeks on the train, or a firefighter that goes to the fire academy for 12 weeks, and then we're going to put them behind a desk. That's not their job. That's not what they're trained for. So they went to civilian dispatchers. Our civilian dispatchers are fantastic. They're second to none. I trust my life with our civilian dispatchers. I'm hopefully going to continue to do that. The fire department, they gained a firefighter in 2015 because we went to the dispatch system and went to civilian dispatchers for them. It's worked out well. Along with what Donnie said, what Greg said, what others have said, I don't think there's a hurry into this. I know that the world is going to regionalization. I'm very good friends with a lot of the firefighters, and they've imparted that knowledge on me in a lot of different ways, but I don't think there's a hurry for us. There's no evidence that's been presented to me yesterday or today or anywhere that tells me that the service is going to be better. Financially, I don't think it's going to cost less. I think in the end, it's going to cost more. People have heard the term PSAP, Public Safety Answering Point. Okay, it's been kind of beat up here, but I talked to Chief Giovanello from Hopedale today, and he has to pay Upton to answer his 911 calls now. So once you give that up, you're never getting it back unless you've dealt out some big money through legal funds. Darkness in the building. Chief Giovanello is a classmate of mine from the academy, so I've known him for years. What he said, what really hurt him the most was a dark building when people had to go in, and he had failures. He had technical failures where people went in and pushed the button and it didn't work. He said it was a big concern. And if you're a police officer long enough, you know what it takes for certain people to walk through that door and file a complaint or seek help as a domestic violence abuse person, or sexual assault, whatever it may be. It takes a lot of courage. And if they're going through that, to press a button, you're not going to want to do that. People are going to want to talk to a person. How many people come through our door daily? Some days it's very few, and other days it's like they're wearing out the mat coming through the door. The FD is already closed. They don't accept the public in their building on a regular ongoing basis because it's not set up for them. So I would as a resident, I would be much happier knowing that one of my children has to walk through the door of the police station. There's someone sitting there to assist them in a moment's notice. Could we replace that person? A lot of towns, I spoke to some friends from Franklin too, like Greg, when you're a detective or a sergeant, you talk to a lot of different departments in training class and things like that. I have yet to find one police officer that has said regionalization has been better for them in the entire state that I talked to. Not one police officer. And I don't know if it's going to work. I think Grafton, it's been brought up before, Grafton, South Road, they're going to definitely benefit from this because they only have one dispatcher on now anyways. So their numbers go up no matter what.
Westboro has two on right now. They have a very similar model to what we do. But if they're going to host this, which is a possibility, then there are benefits to them hosting it too. We haven't really talked today about Pro Phoenix. For those in the room who don't understand, Pro Phoenix is our software. It's used for police, fire, and dispatch. We just purchased Pro Phoenix a year ago. We've spent countless hours and money and training. Rob has been amazing doing Pro Phoenix stuff for us.
That's Rob.
Tons of time on this, right? We're just getting over the hump where people are getting real comfortable with it and doing better with it. There's no guarantee that we're gonna keep using Pro Phoenix. That could be money you're just flushing down the toilet tomorrow if we go to this. And that's a big concern for me, because I hate waste. I cannot stand waste. The regional dispatch has worked in other areas, and I fear that it could be coming to areas like ours. I just have to say that I'm concerned about the timing and how quickly we're getting into it. Prisoner watch, we watch prisoners. The dispatchers do 90% of our prisoner watches. An officer will come in and dispense meds or take the person out to make a call, whatever. But prisoners have to be checked every half hour. Dispatchers do that. They do that now. If we have an arrest in on a Friday afternoon, Chuck was great for this. Chuck used to get arrested at 5 o'clock on Friday afternoon on the holiday. It would be a non-releasable arrest, a warrant that they couldn't get released. And the officer will have to then be in the station to watch that prisoner for the whole weekend. There's a significant cost to that I don't think people are aware of. I spoke with a friend of mine that used to work here with us, who works at Franklin. Some of the things that he talked about, he said, and he's actually on a committee that's going to now sit in and work with the regionalization dispatchers to try and improve their abilities and get them up to par where they need to be. The loss of community feel and ability to work together is gone. He says there's just no expectations that's going to occur. We've talked about the local landmarks and nicknames in areas of towns. This town, when I first went on the road in this town, you people throw nicknames around. I had no idea what it gets very hard. It takes time to get up to knowledge of those. Mix-ups. When you have 4 towns, there's a 74 Main Street in Hopkins. Well, I can almost promise you there's a 74 Main Street in Grafton, there's a 74 Main Street in Westboro, and there's a 74 Main Street in South. There's mix-ups regularly for that. When Grafton, like Franklin's getting a call from 74 Main Street, and it's a call was supposed to go to Rundle. It happens. It's human nature. It's errors. We don't have that right now. With when someone said Clapham Place Avenue, those could be the only mix-ups we could possibly get, and you can get to the other one pretty quick. Franklin recently had this person was found in the woods. The fire department was dispatched. The police department wasn't dispatched to that call for 30 minutes. So if that's a murder scene, and there's no police officers on scene to rope it off, to put up the police tape, to secure that crime scene and prepare it for evidence gathering and stuff, you can't go back and do that. Once that's once that's destroyed, it's done. You can't go back and go over that.
Take it off after he gets done.
Internet, and we have a spot at the station where people can come and exchange and sell things from the internet, or a lot of people come and do their child exchange when there's been divorce and they don't get along. Well, there's an expectation for those people that there's someone inside the building that they can go to for help, or that's watching on a camera. That's out the window. We go to this. We go to a dark station. Layoffs. It breaks my heart to think about my colleagues getting laid off. I know it's a possibility, but it would not be one that I would like. And I think there's an opportunity here for us to expand our dispatch operation and grow it rather than eliminate it here in the town. I think that as the town of Hopkins grows, there's an opportunity for the dispatch center to take over and assume DPW communications and how they work during storms and power outages and all those different things, and to expand that. There's a lot of opportunity for do better training. You know, we've heard some rumblings. When I say I'm on the ground, I'm on the ground. I talk to people. When we have a bad incident, the next time that all those people are together, we sit down and we do a debrief. And it's not a finger point. It's not, hey, Shannon, you did this wrong, and Rob, why didn't you do this? It's, hey, what did you have at this point for information, and how can we improve that the next time? Nothing about finger. Can't do that. We lose complete power and control over any of those debriefs with the dispatchers on a one-on-one basis, face-to-face in the squad room. I just don't think the time is right, and I have to echo what Donnie really kind of hammered home. One of his 16 different jobs that he does this isn't the right time to look at this. And I hope that we will take a lot more time and energy to try to vet this out and see if this is the right thing for Hopping to do. Our dispatchers are fantastic and they deserve all the credit for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Looking at the time, we will take 3 more comments. We have to take one from the public. Josh, do you still have somebody remotely?
Yeah, Diane with her hand raised.
Diane, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I have spoken before, so if there's someone who hasn't, who's online, I'd be happy to cede to them.
Okay, who has not, I saw a hand. Go ahead, Kylie.
Kylie Davis, I just wanted a little clarification. So my understanding with this IMA and the grant portion is that the deadline is March 2nd by 5. With that being said, when will we know when our IMA is drafted and when the board will be voting? That's a hard and fast deadline, I've been told, from a previous meeting in another town that's involved.
We're looking into that deadline. In terms of when will you know, when we get the answer, in terms of the grant deadlines, we'll bring that to the select board in a public meeting. And in fact, our plan.
March 2nd at 5.
Yes, it's been explained to us that that deadline is set to receive the applications in. However, there's another deadline that is set to receive information that completes the application. We're looking into that.
Right?
So we don't have a definite answer for when the board will be voting on whether we're moving forward with an IMA.
We don't have that deadline, but we will let you know. And in fact, part of the plan is as soon as we're able to share the IMA, we want to share it with the union.
How will the public know
Right.
what the decision
It's
is?
not just her.
The decision will be made in a public meeting.
Okay, so we should be monitoring the upcoming meetings.
We will keep you in the loop.
We also posted on the town page.
Yes, we will. Okay, member Jane, go ahead. You're going to talk about 2010? I thought you were going to talk about 2010. Yeah.
Jane Moran, 70 East Main Street, retired chief of police of Southborough. Full disclosure, Norman and I worked on this project in 2010. And I can honestly say that accolades go out to this entire panel for doing the project the way you have been doing it now. It was very different in 2010. And I think that we can say we learned from our experience back in 2010. We brought the Collins Group in this year. We didn't do that before. And we have access to much more valuable numbers and research and facts that we did not have in 2010. I agree that it's driven by the state. And with I pay state taxes too. And I don't blame the state for wanting to cut their budgets. Everyone's looking to cut their budgets. And this is one area that they see that they can possibly do it. Do we want to participate in that as a town or not? I will make this short because we're ending, but I have full confidence in our panel, our police chiefs, our communications director, our select board members, that they will take all of the questions and the facts and all of the comments that everyone who cares and loves about our town has brought to this panel and focus tonight and take that into account. Southborough, Ashland, Hopkinton turned it down in 2010 because we couldn't answer enough questions and facts. And I really do have confidence that this panel, all of our elected officials and hard worked leaders in this town will be able to make the correct decision for the town that we all love and choose.
Yeah. Ellen? Oh, Evan, yeah, Evan, yeah. Hi, Evan.
Good evening.
Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Evan Brooks, and I've been dispatching since 2002. I started working for the town of Hopkinton at the age of 19, and I've dedicated my whole adult life to this job, law enforcement, dispatching, everything. I just want to say that my whole heart and soul is in this job. I mean, for the people, the towns, law enforcement, fire, everything. So I just appreciate everyone immensely. After 21 years approximately of working here and potentially losing my job because of maybe not being hired at the new rec. Apparently it's not a guarantee. What would I tell my wife and kids? I have 3 young, beautiful kids. Even if I do get rehired at this rec, do I get seniority? Do I get vacation time? Anything like that? Nothing's a guarantee. The worst part about this whole thing, I think, is for the community. In my opinion, the citizens of Hopkinton and the other communities of the rec, they'll suffer because there's no longer going to be any personalized touch with customer service, the level you're going to get on the Hopkinton level, and so on. You'll get, in the current setup, we have certain critical knowledge that's been mentioned before. The woman over there mentioned arenas. That was me that took the call. I remember that call. So, I mean, I know places in town, grew up in town. You're not going to get that from a regional center. So that critical knowledge, the streets, the people, the history, things like that, you're not going to get ×3. Now that I have to dispatch for Southborough, Westborough, Grafton, you're going to lose all that intimate knowledge that one day could save your life. So I'd like to also note that we have come such a long way, the technology since I started. I mean, we just had E911 at the beginning. It was green screens. Like, technology's come a long way in 21 years. We've had plenty improvements over that time in my profession. We already have a great system in place that works really well in Hopkinton. Yeah, there's room for upgrades, yada, 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 minor changes. I'm open to that. That's fine. I just don't see the need to reinvent the wheel. To give up such a great thing we have working for us already in Hopkinton. I just don't understand it. So in closing, I just want to leave you all with a quote. I just want everybody to think hard about. It's what is right is not always popular, and what is popular is not always right. This is from Albert Einstein. So, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, who gets to make the final comment? Pat O'Brien.
That over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not bad.
I have 12 pages. I do, but we're not gonna go there because most of the things I was gonna say, other people have said, and I wholeheartedly agree with all of that. Just a few points that I'd like to just say that the Hopkinton way, I got hired in 1983 as a police officer, spent 32 years here. And we've had great leaders, great chiefs, from Vulcan, McRobert, Irvin, Flannery, Wallace, Lee, now Chief Bennett. And we've always done things the right way. And I think residents of Hopkinton can agree with that. And my fear is that if we take our dispatchers and put them in a rec center, we lose that autonomy. We have no control. And they'll do things their way, not the Hopkinton way. So I'm very proud of the Hopkinton way. I want to keep it the Hopkinton way. And if we go to rec center, that's one of my fears. As far as regionalization goes, with any regionalization that is undertaken, is that sense of community becomes less important. Is the reason why 18,000 police agencies in the United States want their own brand of safety and security. And that will get diluted for the sake of regionalization. So I'm not in favor of regionalization. I think if we have other towns come in and tell us what to do, that's going to affect the way we want to do things.
And the final message I'd like to say, to our select board, because of all the reasons stated earlier tonight, I'm against the rec. And I think it's very sad that the town has left our dispatchers out on a limb for this amount of time. Especially during the holiday season. They don't know if they're gonna have a job coming next year or in a couple months. Many of them have families, so, they don't know if the town will enter into this agreement and they will lose their jobs. I wouldn't blame any of them if they decided not to take that chance and started looking for a job tomorrow and leave Hopkinton high and dry with no dispatches. I think it's only fair that we should get through this process and get to it, finish it really quickly. Let them hang out, not knowing whether they're gonna have a job. So I encourage you to move this process on as quick as possible. Thank you.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
Nancy Peters, I've been in town a little bit. I live in Woodville. And I heard, or I think I heard that this was.
Excuse me,
not
louder?
about-
Can you speak a little louder?
I think I heard that this is not about money. However, it seems to me that the schedule is being driven by money. We have a grant, we have to apply for the grant within a few weeks because it is about money, and I think that's a huge mistake.
Yeah, it's always mine.
We hear you. Again, I did promise we're taking the last three questions. Is there anything that has not been said
Yes.
that you'd like to share?
So much.
Unfortunately, you've spoken so many times in this building, so I would defer. Go ahead.
Just have a quick question. 5 years ago, I lost my sister here in Wrinkle Village. She called on, I know it, that's the nickname.
It's one of those things only you can say.
She called on her cell phone for 911. She did not have a house phone. And she always went outside when she would call. Has that changed in 5 years with calls?
No.
911 calls on cell phones? They didn't get to her in time.
Oh,
Yes and no. So it's a very confusing kind of technology behind the system.
Yeah.
So ultimately, if coming from a cell phone, depending on how quick the information from the phone can get out, will determine whether it goes in as what's called a phase 1 or phase 2. So if it can't get out fast enough, it's a phase 1, and it goes by the tower that you're using to, make your call.
Right, okay.
And that will go to the state's answering facility. It used to be the state police. It's now a state 911 facility. They will then answer it and transfer it into us. If it does have enough of that information and can get out as a phase 2, where it's actually getting out to the satellites to do GPS, those calls will come directly into us.
Okay.
But it's a toss up when you make that call, how it's gonna go out. There's no way to predict.
Okay.
Going outside is certainly a better idea.
Yeah.
Because you have a clearer view to the sky for satellites and whatnot.
That's why I have a landline now.
Me too.
Can I speak to that? Because it goes to safety. So what percentage do you believe come in with a location? Do you think it's 75% or more?
Oh God, I don't know. Without looking at the data, I couldn't even begin. Because I'm not out there answering them all, so I don't know how they all come in. Like as they're being, you can see it on the screen.
The
if
other
it's
ones
phase
will
1,
get
phase 2.
transferred to us from the state.
Yeah, and the other thing too is when they're transferred,
Okay.
they can change phases. So we
Mandy,
wouldn't necessarily know.
Okay, me again.
your building.
It's
So
gonna
go
be
ahead.
really quick. Between iPads and text on phones and different things, I think we all get the Hopkinton Independent delivered to our homes. So could this information please be put into the Hopkinton Independent to keep us abreast of what's going on with this project?
Don't forget about the hot news.
Can
About HCAM.
you also,
I represent the independent. There was an article,
Oh, Independence there too.
yep, we had an article, a long article in the paper, on the website yesterday. And there will be a follow-up to this, as well.
I just,
Independent.
I just wanted to make sure that people know that they should send their questions, concerns, and comments in now. There's a dedicated line for this RECC, but also to the select board members. So make sure you get your comments, questions, concerns in now.
And how do we do that?
Email or call.
I tried to find the email.
I'll give you.
Work with you right after the meeting.
Yeah.
Any
I'll,
last words?
No, I was actually gonna say what Muriel
oh,
said.
sorry.
Not everyone got to speak, so please do email in or your questions or comments if you would like.
Yes,
And, and we will put, this will be on the website, so it's on YouTube. People could watch it later who missed it.
Yeah.
Um,
Let me take this opportunity again to thank all of you, our staff, our team, consultants we have left, for your patience, for your dedication to the community, as well as being here tonight. Thank you so much.